Hello everyone, welcome to your art class. I'm Mr. Long and today I have a special guest. I have Miss Long with me. So, what we were going over before are color schemes. Different color schemes help make your work look better, help make your work look more vibrant. It tells different stories just by the use of color. So, Miss Long and I had one picture we came up with, and we took our time. We chose two different methods and two different medias of coloring to use. I use design markers and
I use design color pencils.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the video. We're going to watch the video while you watch the video, and we're going to talk through what we did, our process, and mention some of the color schemes we used and how we used them. Right?
Yep.
All right. So I'm just going to,
And this part out,
Yeah.
go faster. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, just take a second.
Mm-hmm. 2 more seconds.
Maybe. There it is. All right, so my image is on your
Right, left.
No, our left, you're right.
Yeah.
And your image is on the left.
Yes.
Okay, so Miss Long has the color wheel out next to her, and I'm just looking and cheating off her work and looking at the color wheel as we go along. So what I'm doing in my picture, I'm pointing out just some of my main designs, my intentions. I wanted to ensure that the clouds are going to have an analogous color scheme, and I want the water to be a monochromatic color scheme.
I think when I had the color wheel, I wanted to make sure my contrast colors were together and just to look at which is going to be the cool colors and the warm colors and how they would correspond and contrast to each other. So my background was going to be a gray background with the starry night.
Nice choice, nice choice. So both of us took a piece of papers and we had them to the side, so that way as we are using our colors, we want to test the colors on a separate piece of paper first. That right? So that way we make sure that we're kind of giving ourselves all our options that we can use.
I didn't want to use a too dark color and then make it hard to go back and cover over it. So I would try lighter than darker.
Exactly, I agree the same way. So far with my image, I started creating the sun, and I'm using yellow to start my analogous color scheme. But the sun, if you notice, it's kind of a little less faint. It has a higher tint to it. And just lucky enough that that particular marker is the same color as the outside of the sun, but I was running out of ink in it, so the pigment was running out, and now it becomes faded. I was able to refill it with some more fluid inside of it to make it flow, but it flows not as saturated because it's less. Therefore, it looks like it's a light yellow.
Pretty cool. I just went over my moon. That's the moon in the background. So I gave it some craters with some orange, probably little gray spots, speckles, just sort of give it some definition. And then that's about it. I probably went in with the background and started with a gray, and then at the end you'll see that I also went over the gray parts with the yellow pencil, so it'll also seem like it's shining through.
Like moonlight? Nice, nice. So what I was doing right there, where I'm at right now, I've kind of used a light yellow, then a yellow, then I used a yellow orange, now I'm using orange. So what I'm doing is as I'm using the different colors, I'm trying to transition from the more red color spectrum into the yellow color spectrum. So that way I show that I'm using the neighboring colors within that warm color scheme, but more or less an analogous. I guess it could kind of be the same thing because I happen to use all warm colors for this particular portion of my piece.
So with the specs, did you do like a line work? Like you went piece by piece, this is that color, I'm gonna make this line work, this like deviation of how the sun is glowing like that? Did you do it by a different marker color and then trace over, or you did it piece by color?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So the way I did it is, I did the initial sun and I made the shape, and then I did the next color next to it, and the next color next to it, and then I went back over with the lighter of the two colors to try to do a more of a traditional blend from one color to the other, where it looks definite. You can see the definition, but I wanted to have just a little, almost like a painter effect, so you can see I'm blending from one color to the next when I was doing the sun portion of it. So what I'm getting ready to do now is I'm trying to pick out which color, well, I'm doing birds. So, but I try to pick out which color I'm going to use. That's going to be that one sole color for my water. And I see yours is gray, but I can see you putting clouds within your skyline, like a wisping.
As I went along, I was making sure I stayed with the same line work. And then when I came back in with other details, went up with the other details too. So that's what I did with the waves in the water. I went back, instead of it being black, I could try to cover over it with like a blue. So the water would be like more of a monochromatic blue water. So all cool colors, but they're all monochromatic all together.
Oh, okay, that's cool too. Yeah. So what I was using, I picked out 3 markers, and those markers happen to be the same color, the same hue. And the way I tried to make it have different values, different tints and tones, or lightness or darkness, I want everything with all the same color of blue. And I tried to do maybe a couple of passes, and then I doubled up on some of the different definitions to make it look a little darker in key spots. So that way, you have like the way the light hits it. Sometimes, the water looks blue, but water's clear. But the further you go down, the darker it gets. So I was trying to simulate that visual effect by using
sections.
And so I was just doubling up over to some parts to make it darker. So now I have, a nice light blue, and I have kind of darker of that blue, and then under the dock right there, I went over like a few times to make it really saturated. And then I went back over top of it with a blending stump to take out some color. So that way a blending stump is like a blank, and it clears it out. So that way I have the light, the tint side of it. So I see that you're working on the 2 people sitting on the dock. What was your thought process of creating those?
Well, for the shirts, I just thought, to make it a contrasting color. So contrast the blue would have been orange. And then I was like, I've got blue, and then I got like some deepish, like purplish, deep blue. So I was like, I'll go yellow for the girl and orange for the boy, since those are contrasting colors.
Nice. I see. And it pops off the paper too. That's good use of color. That way you draw a person's eye to those particular things on that big background of blue. Then now you've got a nice contrasted color. You've got a nice yellow for, like I said, for the girl, and a nice orange for the boy. What I was doing on my side, for the boy, I used magenta. I was thinking in a similar mindset as you, so I figured the color was just vivid enough and bright enough that they too would stand out. And I made the shorts green. That way the shorts would just be in contrast to the shirt. Although they kind of hide itself, I figured I'd fix it up later. And then the girl's shirt, I used magenta. In the same vein it is. So one's a deeper red magenta, one's magenta. And the shorts are, I think the shorts are blue. Yeah, they're cyan. Excuse me. So they're much more deeper than the other one.
I gave mine cargo pants. So one has the boy has like more khaki cargos, and then the girl has green cargos. So they both want cargos.
Yeah, okay. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, and then I went with the colors for the brown for the skin tone. I had to go over each and every one of them with like different shades of brown, with different shades, and coloring like undertones for the skin tone.
That's good. Yeah, a lot of times, I guess initially when we first start learning how to color, we'll just find a crayon that's closest to our complexion, and we'll just color it that. But then you ever notice that it never kind of gives you that same look. And I figured that out and learned as well too. You got to kind of layer it. So I did something similar. I believe I started when I layered them with like a pink at first, and then I went back on top of it with like a light brown. Then I went back on it with like a pinkish again, just to try to give it the different. Right. So
that's kind of Same thing is going on with the wood too. Try to make it mahogany, like that deep brown and
Mhm.
red, but this one's a deep brown.
I see. That's pretty good. When I was doing the doc for mine, I after I did it, to be honest with you, I was like, man, I wanted to make the doc their complexion and maybe make them either lighter or darker. But after I committed, I said, well, let me just go with a lighter, and I just use the one I chose for their complexion to be the shading part of it, the cell shading part of it. So I went over it like with I think one pass with the marker as that really light, like a chestnut, I guess. And I just went through it. But then after that, I got inspired when I did the hair. So I started the hair. I did the hair with yellow initially, and then I went back on top of it with like a deeper brown to try to give it, like you say, that layer of color.
Okay.
I see you going back through on yours. You're touching up the ocean some more.
Yeah, I thought more color, more definition. I wanted to throw some more colors in there, fill up. I didn't want it to be so bright. So I was like, maybe I'll give it some more undertones, undercolors, more green in there. So it's like, some more aqua, some more green, some more dark blue. And then in the sky, I'm doing the same thing, trying to, give it some more definition.
Okay. Yeah, what I was doing on mine, it just seemed like some of the areas were faded out on the edges. So I went in back with with one of my brush pen and just tried to tighten it up. And then I went around the characters some more because I made a couple of mistakes. Because there's a marking, they bleed a little bit. So I wanted to hide my mistake a little bit by using that to cover it up. So, but I know we're pretty much near the end now. So there goes looks at the finished product we have there. This is mine. Sitting on the dock of the bay.
Watching time pass away.
Sitting on the dock of the bay. Wasting time. That's it. Do.